People are still talking about the world of politics and what's going on in the political landscape, particularly with the State of the Union that was held recently, and all along those lines. So people are still having that conversation and seeing what's going on in that way. I'm going to bring in Sasha Starr, see what he's got to say about what's going on in the world and all in that kind of space. But how are you doing, Sasha?
Thank you, Mark. I'm doing fine. And what I'd like to bring something very important is uh, reaction of Musk on Trump's tariffs against Canada. Trump published several tweets as soon as that became known in early 2025 when Trump first announced any tariffs against Canada. You have to understand something. The significance of that is that for the last dozens of years, Canada was the strongest and closest ally of the United States. Their economies are not only that there was no competition between them, but they were interwoven into each other, and the for example, like automotive segment, it was a complete agreement between Canada and the United States and Mexico as well, and it was renegotiated by Trump himself in 2020, and he boasted that this is the most important thing what he did as a president, and he negotiated it himself and he signed it by himself. And when in early 2025, when he started to do the tariffs against Canada, Musk immediately reported on Twitter while he was very close to Trump. Remember that he was the biggest donor of Trump's campaign, and he immediately knew that this is a fundamentally wrong decision because essentially this is putting a great wedge between American and Canadian economies. And especially when Prime Minister Carney became Prime Minister, replacing the Trudeau, it became obvious that Canada will not quietly sitting there and accept all Trump's tariffs and his change of policies and so on, but it will be very vocal. And it became quite obvious very early in the game when Carney uh, completely disagreed with the new policy of the United States, and in turn, Canada turned on their own tariffs against U.S. And now it came to the point where Carney is ahead of a huge coalition of at least 40 countries, and now Brazil joined them as well. And where they will have a free trade. It includes all European Union countries. It includes South Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Brazil now, most likely China will follow suit. And all the trade between all those countries will be conducted in euros, not US dollars. So that became a huge weakness for the United States domination, and it completely destroys any, if not all, soft powers that the United States has in the world. It delivers a huge blow to U.S. economy, and I can't compare what the problems Trump delivered to the United States more than all other presidents put together. So this is becoming really a huge problem for the United States, and I'm wondering how American people will try to rectify it.
It'll be interesting to see what folks do and how they react to that. I did see that there is some other news that the U.S. Iran nuclear talks, according to senior U.S. officials that are working for the Trump administration, were very positive. So just making so they're saying that they're having some positive talks about how they will handle the nukes that are existing in Iran. So, what very positive means? You got any idea, Rick, as to what very positive could mean? Because that could be one of those terms that can have all kinds of very loose definitions.
I don't know. I mean, so Iran's a big country. It's 2.5 times the size of Texas. Iran, I think, has recently said that they're no longer interested in building nuclear weapons. But if they want to build them, there's a lot of places to. I mean, it's a huge country to hide any kind of program. But nuclear weapons have two parts. One is the bomb itself, and then is the missile that you have that gets. We've watched North Korea, with their program, and they might be able to build nukes, but their missiles are not super reliable. So Iran, for decades, has been proceeding along those two paths, trying to get deliverable weapons. Now they say they're not interested. Maybe, like when we took out Saddam Hussein, there was Gulf War I in 1991,
Mm-hmm.
when after Hussein had invaded, what was it, Kuwait? And then
Kuwait.
after that, Hussein seemed to have learned his lesson, said, no, I'm no longer interested in doing that or developing weapons of mass destruction. Then the George W. Bush administration lied and said he was still developing. So in Saddam's case, he had learned his lesson. In Iran's case, we don't frickin' know. And I don't know. Sasha, what do you think?
Okay, I think that we are witnessing a great spectacle of nothing. From military point of view, U.S. is not capable to have military victory over Iran, whether it's a long war or a short war or any war. It's nothing. So this is a spectacle of sending this armada, these carriers, and all that stuff. For example, this armada has at its possession 800 Tomahawk missiles. 800 Tomahawk missiles will be used if there will be armed conflict, 2 days. Overall, U.S. has 4,000 Tomahawk missiles. So it will take additional efforts and quite substantial efforts to bring all or any of these Tomahawk missiles to the armada that the U.S. has around Iran. And even that, so that will be used in another few days. Then what? U.S. is not capable to put so-called foot on the ground in Iran. It's impossible. The geography of Iran just does not permit it. So without that, there is absolutely no way to have a successful military campaign against Iran. So all that is posturing, saying that, oh, we have negotiations, we have great negotiations, we have successful negotiations and all that stuff. It does absolutely nothing. So Trump is trying to squeeze something from Iran to say that, okay, look at our great victory, we send our armada, so they agreed to this or that, and so on, and it's not happening even now. So I don't know, he boxed himself into a situation from there is no escape. Unless he will say that, sorry, I was wrong, okay, we are off Iran, and just do whatever you want, and so on, which is not going to happen either. So then you don't know what we're talking about.
So we can compare going up against Iran to the two Iraq wars. The first, in 1991, it was Saddam invades Kuwait. And then a coalition of 30 nations builds up an overwhelming military force on the border of Iraq, and they roll in and they win the war in 4 days. 4 freaking days. Overwhelming force.
Remember, they put foot on the ground. They had tanks, they have everything there. It's impossible to do against Iran.
They had a coalition of 30 countries, the combined force. And then Iraq War II, they still had overwhelming force. It took a while longer. They had no plan for what they did after they knocked down Saddam Hussein, and that was bad, but it was still an easy victory. However, freaking Iran, compared to Iraq, has 610,000 active duty military, another 350,000 reserves, so 1 million soldiers. And we're not even putting a boot on the ground. We would be firing missiles into Iran. We might kill some of their leaders. This would not topple their government. This wouldn't change really anything.
No.
Now, what about Cuba? Because, like I said, they're still having questions about this whole shooting that took place. So, is Cuba in play, and should Cuba?
No, a boat full of lunatics. So, Miami in southern Florida has a bunch of ultra right-wing Cubans who left Cuba and live in the United States, and they have dreams of toppling the regime. And we don't know what these guys are up to, but a boatload of 10 guys with weapons go out into the ocean, because Cuba's only 90 miles from Key West. Right. And so they're out in the ocean. They get close to Cuba. They fire on a Cuban boat. And Cuba, the boat, being a military boat, has a ton of weapons, and they just fire back and they kill 4 of the guys. Is this going to change anything? No, it's just a boat full of private lunatics.
So you don't think that Trump is going to get his mess involved in it and try to make it a bigger deal than it is and everything like that? That's my fear, is that he might try to make it a bigger
I don't know. Deal. We have a nearly 70-year history of trying to knock down Cuba's communist government, right, and we've never succeeded. And to think that Trump would, I don't know. I mean, is he crazy enough to? What would he do? I don't know. We have a base on Cuba. We have Guantanamo Bay. Right. Would he? I don't think even Trump is crazy enough to think that there would be an easy way to topple Cuba.
Absolutely. No, and this is in spite of Monroe Doctrine. So in Monroe Doctrine, then U.S. had to knock out Cuba back 60 years ago when the revolution just happened there. They had to immediately obliterate this new communist regime and get Cuba back to the place where it always was, and that didn't happen. So it's very difficult to imagine that it will happen now. Even the Caribbean crisis of 1962, that was resolved peacefully between the United States and Soviet Union, and again nothing has happened. Now there is a bigger problem, Brazil. It's much bigger problem than Cuba, because Brazil is a 9th world economy, and it's going away from United States, from US dollar. It will be supported by a basket of currencies, where the number one currency is euro. So US will have nothing to do with the trade when actually Carney, our prime minister, he designed for Brazil a new way of trade, which will be settled by the basket of currencies. I think there are 9 currencies, of which number one is the euro. So all this trade between these 40 plus countries will be carried, as I said, in primarily euros. So US is leaving world market. Nobody wants to deal with US. Nobody wants to trade with US. This is a dying situation for a Trump's regime, and it will take generations to repair this situation, if it's possible at all.
What role do you think Mexico is going to have in all of this stuff going on in the world? Because apparently after the killing of El Mencho, Trump called the Mexican president to ask what's going on and all along those lines. So they definitely had this notion of getting rid of a cartel member and everything like that. So is Mexico cooperating with us, not cooperating with the U.S.? What's going on? Should Mexico be cooperating? What's y'all's take on Mexico's role with the U.S.?
Well, I mean, all these situations that you're talking about have a certain stability to them. It's hard to mess with Cuba because Cuba's had the same government essentially since 1958. Frickin', what are we talking about? What country are we talking about?
Mexico.
Mexico. Well, Mexico's had the same problem with cartels for decades. Nixon started the war on drugs in 1971, and within 10 years we had cartels because there was more of a push to make drugs illegal, which made them more valuable, which helped create the cartels. So the cartels have been in place for 40 years. And you kill one guy, and all you do is you start a gang war. And it's not going to overthrow the cartel system.
Yeah, well, apparently the former DEA official is warning U.S. tourists against going to Mexico after the cartel leader's death. He's saying that it's not worth your life. The country is still very unstable. That's what Mike Vigil, the former chief of international operations for the DEA, told People magazine. So he's saying that it's definitely a volatile situation there, and apparently in a different side, but still in the Latin American side.
We can ask Sasha. My wife and I have been to Mexico a couple times on cruises. Sasha used to work on cruises, and our conclusion is that Mexico is not that much fun, at least if you come off of a cruise. But there's better places. And yeah, if you're going to put yourself at risk in the middle of a gang war, Mexico's not freaking worth it.
I was in Mexico a few times, not on a cruise. Our cruise never stopped at Mexico ports. I never liked Mexico. Our daughter got sick from food poisoning once there, and it took 6 months to liquidate this sickness. So for me, Mexico is absolutely no-go country.
If you're going to visit another country, go north, visit Sasha in Canada. Canada is pretty awesome. You go up to, if you take a cruise up to Victoria and Vancouver, it's really nice. The people are nice. You can check out Tim Hortons, which supposedly has the best coffee in North America. You got waffles, you got maple syrup. Everybody's courteous.
It's very pleasant, actually. You're right, Vancouver.
Yeah, that sounds good. Apparently, you don't want to take a job.
Yeah.
Yep. Apparently, you don't want to take a job by Border Patrol because one of the articles I'm seeing says an IT worker was hired by Border Patrol to help with their system, meaning that he was hired to fix their computers and everything. Agents arrested him instead. So the Border Patrol hired a Venezuelan asylum seeker and arrested him when he showed up for work, is what he's claiming, and all along those lines. So I guess
today we've seen several stories where ICE or Border Patrol has just been bullshitting people. They yesterday or the day before, they took this Columbia neuroscience student. They lied to get into her building, and she's got a student visa. She's going to Columbia University. Anyway, they took her. They took her prisoner. And today, Mondami flew down to New York City to talk to Trump and asked Trump to let her go. And Trump, for some reason, Trump is tickled by Mondami. They like each other, I guess, on a personal level. He let the girl go, but today we've seen several reports of they tell this one guy, we're taking you prisoner. Go tell your wife, go get her to come out here to take care of your kids. And so he goes and he tells her. She comes out, they arrest her, they let him go. I guess you don't have to tell the truth if you work for these police agents.
Yeah, and apparently there's another case is that Marine crews from the San Diego area recently, down not that far from you, intercepted 3 boats suspected of smuggling 33 migrants into the U.S. from Mexico. So they apprehended 3 vehicles carrying 36 migrants from Mexico. If you hear Trump say it, there's very little people coming into the country when it was apparently an all-time high under Biden and everything like that. So I was just wondering your take on that, because even another story I saw said the Border Patrol arrests take a tiny border town. So there are still people trying to get in from Mexico and other parts. But are you thinking that there'll be a? Do you believe the figures that he's given, which is basically that he's saying that there's very little immigration that is taking place in terms
Yeah,
of?
I think I do. I mean, because everybody knows we're being dicks to immigrants now. That you get caught by ICE or Border Patrol and you don't know what the hell's going to happen to you. I do believe he's cut down border traffic. I think that's the one thing he's done effectively.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know for sure, but yeah, I believe that there are fewer people trying to cross the border, the southern border into the U.S.
Furthermore, even if you cross the border legally with all the papers, remember the story a couple of months ago with the South Korean battery plant that they're trying to build in the United States, and there were people who were actually teaching American workers what to do and what is the job descriptions or so on, and they were arrested, handcuffed by American authorities, sent back to South Korea. So how can you imagine South Korea would invest, according to Trump, trillions of dollars to South Korean factories in U.S. if people who are building these factories and training American workers are being arrested and handcuffed?
Exactly. And apparently Cuba is still saying that they're going to play in the World Baseball Classic and everything like that. But despite the fact that 8 members of their traveling party have been denied visas. So I don't know if that's the coaches or the players or who, but I guess they're still thinking that they can have a strong team because we know Cuba usually has a strong team in this classic and everything like that without these 8 players. But 8 of them were denied visas for whatever reason and everything like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in that sense when the World Baseball Classic takes place, and we'll see if Cuba wins or one of the other countries wins or maybe one of the American teams.
Even more interesting, that's a pretty small event. The World Cup is huge, and it's taking place in the 3 North American countries, Mexico, most of the games in the U.S., some games in Canada. We'll see how that that happens in June, right? Or starts in
June, July, yes.
Yeah.
It starts 11th of June. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know let's see how many games are being played in LA, because LA remains, you know, a pretty decent city for if you're a foreign tourist. So let's see how many games we're going to have here.
Well, you're seeing that the baseball game will open play on March 6th, and Cuban team, the first game is supposed to be against Panama, and it looks like it's taking place in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and everything like that. So definitely it looks like it'll be taking place in a part of the United States that sometimes Trump forgets that is a part of the United States and everything like that. So we'll see what's going on in that space, because I think these are teams from both Latin America and North and the U.S.
So in the opening round of the World Cup, 8 games are scheduled for Los Angeles.
Okay.
I think people could feel, I mean, you know, reasonably okay about coming to the U.S. for these games if you're coming through LA Customs, and you know there's not a bad vibe coming into LAX.
Yeah, but don't forget that a lot of tourists from Europe, they will be coming through New York. And
Yeah.
from New York they will fly to
Yeah, I assume New York is pretty good too, because it's also a democratic state. But I don't know. But I know from just personal experience, coming into LA is still seems okay. Of course, I'm coming in on an American passport.
Yeah,
Right.
that makes difference. Yeah.
What did you find out about, and this is still politics, but another one of your interests, Sasha? What did they announce yesterday in terms of NVIDIA and everything like that? Because I do know that you were waiting for an announcement after your show, but I don't know what the announcement was. So what did they finally say, and what is it NVIDIA looking like now?
Well, the report was good, which was expected. The guidance was good, which was accepted, which was also anticipated. The problem is that today NVIDIA went down $10 or so. And the reason for that is that there is still growing competition for NVIDIA from other chip makers company, and the Nvidia stock is doing so well, and it's so expensive that people are scared that there is no more room to grow. Let's see, it's now 185 today. So the yesterday after hours, after the report, Nvidia went up as high as 203. But 2-3 months ago, it was as high as 212. So it's still locked into the ceiling of 212. It cannot go any higher. So maybe one of the scenarios is that NVIDIA will go still lower. Maybe it will go as low as $150, maybe a little bit more. And only that it will become very attractive for investors to try to build up position in NVIDIA. For me, the way I mitigated that, yesterday during the day, I sold covered calls on NVIDIA very deep. I sold April 200 calls, or even May. I can take a look. And so this way, they're quite expensive. So I was paid quite a lot of money for this covered calls. And so that was kind of a defense against downturn on NVIDIA shares. And looks like I was right, because today NVIDIA was down, and it could go lower tomorrow as well.
Interesting there.
We can talk about the Skynet problem with AI, which is going on with the Department of Defense. I don't understand the story. I haven't looked at it much, but the Department of Defense is fighting with Anthropic, who does Claude AI, about what kind of safeguards they put on AI. And the deal is, when Terminator came out in like 82, it was a story. 84, sorry. What happens is, in the future, Skynet, which is this giant AI, they didn't call it back, they called it, I don't know, a computer that became self-aware and decided humans were the problem and started a nuclear war against the humans, and then also robots against the humans, and then the humans had to figure out how to travel back in time to stop the development of this computer. And there was a lot of hocus pocus. It wasn't, like, it was a movie with a lot of made up stuff. Right. But now we are seeing the first step, and there have been like 7 Terminator movies, so we've seen more of the way that the situation develops. But still, it's all movie hocus pocus. But now we're starting to see how some of this stuff might happen in real life. And it's crazy because it mirrors the movies, where you have these billionaire tech bros who, some are concerned about AI safety. Some just want to keep making a shit ton of money. And it's crazy that this stuff was foretold in 1984, and it's starting to play out, and we're starting to see how it might actually happen.
Yeah, but a lot of that stuff is foretold. I mean, think about Trump being foretold in everything from The Simpsons to some detective shows. I think even one of the Law and Orders might have even had him as president.
The Simpsons thought, what would be the most hilarious, worst person to be president? And the obvious choice was Trump. And then it happened. But
it happened in reality and everything like that. So yeah.
But Trump, as bad as he can be, is not as bad as the obliteration of humanity by technology.
That's true.
I was listening to Jim Galloway, and he has a very interesting theory how American people can fight the so-called tech brothers who all support Trump. There is most of the services now, they're being by subscriptions. For example, you can subscribe to Apple TV, to Prime Video, and all that stuff. So if you will cancel your subscriptions, it's like a few dollars a month, $12 a month, $15 a month. I found actually that I have Apple and Prime, and I don't even use it. I watch mostly Netflix, but the other two no. So if Americans will start canceling these subscriptions, their earnings model, will suffer tremendously if it will be large enough numbers, and that will affect their balance sheets and their earning power, and that is a way how American can resist this horrible services.
Yeah, but a lot of times, I mean, I like our streaming services. I don't want to give them up. Also, a lot of times we see this in ads for that. A lot of times people don't even know they're subscribed. You know, just
Absolutely. Yep.
That's true. A lot of people don't know who they're subscribed with or what their subscriptions are, and sometimes you'll have multiple subscriptions that sometimes are repeating the services and everything like that. Like you might have Spectrum and Fubo, which basically give you the same thing and everything like that. So some people like to have multiple subscriptions just because one may have more than the other, or one may offer different channels than the other, or for various reasons people do that and everything like that. Hey, Rick, when these world leaders, when their kids get in power, do they just like lose their minds and everything like that? Because we all know about the situation with the Philippines and what's gone on with their leadership and some of the other ones. And then I just saw that the leader of the Zimbabwean revolution, Robert Mugabe's son, apparently has been arrested because he killed maybe his gardener or something like that. So he's been arrested, even though he's the family of a leader. And of course, we all know about Prince Andrews and the troubles that he's in. And
wasn't Mugabe a bad guy? Didn't he turn into a bad guy when he held power?
I think he was seen as a bad guy by many, and all along those lines. So yeah, so his son may be just following in his footsteps and everything like that. But yeah, he's recently been arrested for this murder charge in South Africa and everything like that. So we'll see if the charge sticks or what goes on with that particular case. I saw that come across my news feeds like a day or two ago that they had just recently arrested him. So yeah, but a lot of these royalty decide that they have the privilege of I guess they feel they can do whatever they want to. And it'll be interesting, even with our own royalty, to see how Byron turns out and any of the other kids of Trump. We know that Don Jr. is very much involved in his dad's politics and everything like that. So what's our take on these world leaders and their offsprings? Even we talked about the Clintons. I don't think that they brought their daughter into the testimony, but who knows? They may go back and see if she's.
No, I mean, like Chelsea Clinton, as far as I know, seems normal. The Kennedy kids, Caroline and JFK Jr., seemed. Caroline Kennedy seems very sane. JFK Jr. seemed a little bit entitled, but mostly sane. Amy Carter, you don't hear much from her. So I don't know. We've mostly raised, president's kids who aren't too dickish. Barron, he's still what? He's not even 21 yet. Well,
he's still in college. I think this is his sophomore or senior year in college. I mean, sophomore.
Yeah, he stays pretty quiet, though he stands out because he's like 6'7" or something.
He's like tall.
But and he was probably raised mostly outside of the White House because Melania maintained a separate address. So I don't know. We'll see. So far, he seems to have not. He hasn't split with his family. The last presidential kids who actively disagreed with their parents were like Patty Reagan, and Ron Reagan Jr. They kind of actively disagreed, but not like angrily.
Did one of the Bush kids disagree? Because I thought one of the Bush kids was part of the LGBT community, if I'm remembering correctly, and everything like that.
Not that I know. Maybe they are, but I don't think that they they didn't come. The Reagan kids are on the opposite side of the political fence.
Oh yeah. Look that up, but I can't look at myself. But I thought one.
And the deal with Barron is, and the other kids, like Tiffany was kind of the treated like the stepchild, where she was Marla Maples' kid, and like Trump didn't pay a lot of attention to her. But the deal with all those kids, the Trump kids, is there are potentially billions of dollars to be inherited.
Mhm.
And would I keep my mouth shut if it, until my dad passes away? If it meant that I would inherit $400 million, I think I would.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. Folks might do that and all along those lines. So I can definitely see where folks would see that as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. I'm trying to see if I can find out whether I thought there was a Bush kid that was, but I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. Won't be the last time. What else is going on in the news, Rick?
I had a couple things teed up. Let me go see if I can find them. The president of the World Economic Forum, who does the Davos summit. So he's kind of a big shot. He has resigned because he showed up in the Epstein files. So foreign people keep having to quit. And we did lose a domestic guy. We lost Lawrence Summers, the former president of Harvard. He showed up in the files a lot. But mostly it's not Americans who are getting in trouble about that.
No, it's the Europeans so far, but that doesn't mean that the Americans.
Oh, Hillary testified in front of a committee of a House committee today, and she said she doesn't know anything about frickin' Epstein. She said she doesn't remember meeting the man. Then the conservatives are saying, yeah, your husband flew on his plane like 23 times, and Ghislaine Maxwell went to Chelsea's wedding. So it's hard to believe you didn't at least meet him once or twice. But really, they don't have much. Like, she has had no knowledge of the island, and it's reasonably easy to believe her. That they asked her, this was closed door hearing. That they shut down for a second because Congresswoman Lauren Boebert snuck a picture of her testifying and sent it to a conservative podcaster who stuck it up on Twitter, which broke the rules of a closed door hearing, which is ridiculous since the Clintons have been asking for an open hearing for months. So anyway, it's a lot of bullshit. She was asked, how do you feel about your husband getting massaged by a teenage girl? And she said, I'm not here to testify about my feelings. So this will be a lot of nothing. She said that, why are you having me here? I don't know shit. Why don't you, she didn't use that language, but she said, why don't you have Trump testify? He shows up in the Epstein files more than any other person besides Epstein. And then Bill Clinton will testify tomorrow. And they're not going to get anything significant. They're not going to change anybody's mind. This is another extravaganza by James Comer, who's a pretty dumb congressman who kept trying to bust the Bidens on financial malfeasance and never got anywhere. Likely because, there was some untoward stuff with Hunter, but nothing illegal. And no, frickin' Hunter was not funneling millions of dollars to his dad, Joe, as part of a bribery scheme. Because Joe Biden was too experienced to do that, and also had too much money because he was in politics for 42, 46 years. He saved his money. He had 3 houses. And then in the 4 years that he was out of office, between being VP and president, he and his wife gave speeches and wrote books and earned $8 million. That's what happens when you're. So why would you get involved in some bullshit bribery schemes if you can make millions of bucks giving speeches? It's ridiculous. So anyway, this Comer guy is trying to find bad stuff about the Clintons, and he's pretty incompetent, and it probably won't go anywhere.
Yep, definitely. So that could be the case and everything like that. Um, Apparently, I was right. His wife and his one of his daughters did support and publicly stated that they supported equal rights for LGBTQ people. And his father attended the marriage of a lesbian couple and signed their marriage certificate as a witness. So that was George W.'s son. I think it was
So,
Dana that was the one that was kind of out there in terms of.
so
Oh,
what it
Barbara.
takes, what it takes for Republicans to decide that they are pro-gay people is to be friends with a pro-gay. Like Reagan didn't take action on AIDS until Nancy's friend Rock Hudson came down with AIDS, and they were all part of the same, kind of Hollywood community. They probably knew that Rock Hudson was gay because he was pretty. He wasn't publicly out, but he was pretty flamboyant in his private life. And then AIDS was obviously like killing the shit out of him. And at that point, they kind of became more supportive of doing something about AIDS. And probably with the Bushes, I think Barbara Bush, the George's wife or the mom's wife. I mean,
Barbara W. That's the one that it was the daughter that's named after the wife. So it was Barbara
right,
W.
right. Anyway, when you get to know gay people and they turn out to be normal and you're friends, you're like, yeah, I guess I'm not going to be anti-gay people.
Right. Exactly. So that makes sense. That's probably what they were doing in that case. Well, we're going to wrap it up. I got to get to the other show as well, but this has been a fun show and all along those lines. And we'll be back with World Edition on tomorrow. But we've got a show on music and entertainment coming up with Coco McMillan at 6 o'clock. So I'm ready to get us on out of here. And y'all have a good day. And I'll see y'all on tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.